Hey, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Ward 1 Councilmember Nadeau, the Chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. Today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, and we are conducting this virtual hearing on the Zoom platform. The time is 5:04 p.m., and I am joined by my colleague, Ward 7 Councilmember Vince Gray. As Chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations, I've convened this public hearing on B25-135, the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Amendment Act of 2023, jointly with Chairperson Pinto of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. The Illegal Dumping Enforcement Amendment Act of 2023 was introduced by Councilmember Gray, along with 8 other council members on February 10th, 2023. The legislation would amend the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Act of 1994 to strengthen the district's ability to enforce the ban on illegal dumping in several ways. First, it would grant the Office of the Attorney General the authority to file civil lawsuits for damages, civil penalties, recovery of the district's response costs, and injunctive or other relief against those who violate the illegal dumping prohibition. The legislation would also clarify that OAG, rather than the U.S. Attorney's Office, is responsible for prosecuting misdemeanor violations of the illegal dumping prohibition. In addition, the bill would amend the definition of solid waste and the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Act to explicitly include appliances and tires. Today, I hope to learn from our public and government witnesses what effect this legislation would have on the district's illegal dumping enforcement efforts. I look forward to hearing everyone's testimony today. Before we begin, I'd like to provide some logistical reminders for today's hearing. You know what? We don't have any public witnesses, so I'm going to skip this part, and I'm going to turn to Councilmember Gray for remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for calling today's hearing on my bill, the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Act of 2023. I also welcome today's witnesses who are joining us. I also thank the co-sponsors for today's hearings, Councilmembers Bonds, Trayon White, Pinto, Henderson, Fruman, and also Councilmember McDuffie as well. I introduced this legislation to strengthen the district's ability to combat illegal dumping, a practice that threatens district residents with significant environmental, public health, and environmental harms. In 2018, a repeat offender dumped hundreds of tires in an empty lot in Ward 7. The cleaning of the tires required tens of thousands of hours of an intensive labor process, and numerous, literally hundreds of community volunteers. Ultimately, the only consequence for the person receiving was a $50 fine and a 30-day suspended sentence. The consequence, the bill would give this office, the Office of the Attorney General, the authority to also engage in damages to file for suits, damages. Also want to I want to thank those who've been working with us to bring about conjunctive relief. I want to thank the Attorney General for collaborating with my office to draft this legislation. So thank you very much. And I want to look forward to hopefully getting this bill adopted.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Gray. We have written testimony from our public witness today rather than oral testimony. So we will go right to our government witnesses. We're joined by Emma Simpson, Senior Counsel to the Attorney General. And I will administer an oath to you and anyone else who might be providing testimony today. Just ask that you raise your right hand. I see you're already unmuted. Thank you so much. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give to the Committee on Public Works and Operations is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Wonderful. You may begin your testimony.
Good evening, Councilmember Nadeau and Councilmember Gray. My name is Emma Simpson, and I serve as Senior Counsel to Attorney General Brian Schwab at the Office of Attorney General for the District of Columbia. With me this evening is Wesley Rosenfeld, an attorney in our Public Advocacy Division, who focuses on enforcing the district's environmental protection laws. On behalf of OAG, thank you for holding a hearing on the Illegal Dumping Enforcement Amendment Act of 2023. We also want to thank Councilmember Gray for his partnership in moving this bill forward. Illegal dumping is a persistent problem that imposes environmental, public health, and economic harms on district residents, especially residents in communities of color. By giving OAG authority to file civil lawsuits against those who violate the district's illegal dumping prohibitions, this bill will strengthen the district's ability to combat illegal dumping and in turn will advance environmental justice and equity. OAG therefore urges the council to quickly pass this legislation into law. Currently, DC Code Section 8902 prohibits the disposal of solid waste, hazardous waste, and medical waste in places that are not authorized for waste disposal. It also prohibits individuals and businesses from causing or permitting illegal dumping to occur. Those who violate the illegal dumping prohibition can face administrative fines or criminal enforcement. Specifically, the Department of Public Works can impose administrative fines, and OAG and the U.S. Attorney's Office can bring misdemeanor or felony charges depending on the nature of the offense. Notably, however, OAG does not currently have authority to bring civil enforcement actions against those who violate the illegal dumping statute. Under the current legal structure, illegal dumping remains far too common. Each year, District 311 receives thousands of service requests related to illegal dumping. In 2022 alone, District 311 received nearly 14,000 service requests for illegal dumping. Dozens of newspaper articles and community blog posts further underscore that illegal dumping remains a persistent problem in the district. Illegal dumping is also not a mere annoyance or eyesore. It can impose significant environmental, public health, and economic harms. For instance, discarded items can leach environmentally hazardous substances like lead paint and gasoline into soil and groundwater and negatively affect plant and animal life. Discarded items can also attract rodents, mosquitoes, and other pests, which can in turn pose risk to human health. And illegal dump sites can adversely affect property values and economic investment and impose significant cleanup costs on the district government. These harms are also not borne equally. Low-income communities and communities of color are often most affected by illegal dumping and its associated harms. Notably, in the district in 2022, there were 6 zip codes that had more than 1,000 illegal dumping related service requests. The residents in 5 of those 6 are predominantly people of color. Additionally, children are especially vulnerable to the hazards posed by illegal dumping. In general, children tend to absorb a greater proportion of environmental contaminants, and their play and exploration can bring them into closer physical proximity to pollutants. This bill, which is simple and straightforward, will advance the district's efforts to address illegal dumping in two important ways. First, it will amend the definition of solid waste to expressly include appliances and tires. Although these items are already covered by the definition of solid waste, and although individuals and businesses can already be held accountable for discarding these items, the bill will expressly include these items in the solid waste definition to ensure that there is no question they are covered. Second, the bill will grant OAG authority to file civil lawsuits for damages, civil penalties, cleanup costs, reasonable attorney's fees, and injunctive relief against those who violate the district's illegal dumping prohibition. Civil lawsuits are a critically important enforcement tool, and in fact, every other major environmental statute in the district gives OAG civil enforcement authority. Closing this enforcement gap in the illegal dumping statute will help ensure that businesses and individuals who engage in illegal dumping do not escape accountability where criminal enforcement may be inappropriate or infeasible, or where administrative fines may be insufficient to address the harms caused or deter future misconduct. Notably, injunctive relief can be a particularly useful tool for curbing future misconduct. With the ability to seek injunctive relief, OAG could, for instance, require a company to put up a fence around a lot that's been used as an illegal dump site, or to change policies that might encourage contractors or employees to engage in illegal dumping. Also, where OAG obtains injunctive relief, it can more easily seek judicial redress when individuals and businesses continue to engage in harmful practices. In short, granting OAG civil enforcement authority will enhance the district's ability to tamp down on illegal dumping, and OAG looks forward to working closely with DPW and MPD's Environmental Crimes Unit to identify and pursue appropriate civil cases that will not only seek to address wrongdoing, but deter future misconduct. Finally, I should note that this bill also codifies a 2019 DC Court of Appeals decision that entrusted OAG with prosecuting misdemeanor violations of the illegal dumping statute. The provisions codifying that decision are intended to promote clarity and transparency in the DC Code. In closing, this bill will strengthen the district's ability to address illegal dumping and its associated harms. We thank the committees for its consideration of these bills, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much. I will kick it off with some questions, and then I will hand it off to my colleague here. Thank you so much for your testimony. Currently, the DC Code provides for certain criminal and civil penalties for illegal dumping, but doesn't specify what body is responsible for enforcing these penalties. What effect will it have to clarify that OAG, rather than the U.S. Attorney's Office, is responsible for prosecuting misdemeanor violations of illegal dumping?
It won't have any significant legal effect. The DC Court of Appeals decision from 2019 concluded that under the Home Rule Act, OAG is responsible for prosecuting misdemeanor violations. So this will just codify that decision. And the main reason for including it in the bill is to promote clarity and transparency in the DC Code about who is responsible for prosecuting which violations.
Okay. Do you think the OAG is the right entity to enforce these penalties?
I think that it's a collaborative approach. I think that all of these enforcement tools, DPW's administrative fines, U.S. Attorney's Office ability to bring felony offenses, our criminal prosecution authority, as well as our civil authority. I think all of those are necessary to ensure that we are adequately addressing illegal dumping in the district.
So DPW is the agency responsible for enforcing violations of illegal dumping in public space in the district. How does OAG anticipate working with DPW to prosecute illegal dumping violations?
We anticipate working very closely with DPW. Our hope is that we can work with DPW to identify repeat offenders and significant offenders where civil enforcement actions may be particularly helpful in ensuring that we can address the full scope of the harms and also potentially obtain injunctive relief that may help prevent future misconduct.
And then how do you see yourself working with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
So as I mentioned, we prosecute misdemeanor violations and the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecutes felony offenses. At the moment, MPD refers cases depending on the type of waste. So our misdemeanor authority has to do with when people dump a solid waste for non-commercial purposes. If a person dumps solid waste for a commercial purpose, or if they dump hazardous or medical waste, then they've committed a felony and it's referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution. Certainly, prior to 2019 and the DC Court of Appeals decision, the U.S. Attorney's Office was responsible for prosecuting all violations of the statute. And once the DC Court of Appeals concluded, we have some criminal enforcement authority. We've been ramping up that enforcement authority. And actually, I can provide that in fiscal year 2021, we brought 28 misdemeanor charges. And in fiscal year 2022, we brought 26 misdemeanor charges for violations of the statute.
Notes. Okay. Where does evidence of illegal dumping come from? For example, does OAG review camera footage from businesses or homes that have cameras installed and maybe have recorded the act as it occurs?
So at present, as I mentioned, we only have criminal enforcement authority, and we receive referrals from MPD's Environmental Crimes Unit. They investigate cases. My understanding is that the MPD's Environmental Crimes Unit also gets referrals from DPW, and that both MPD and DPW have cameras that they use to help address illegal dumping, but also DPW and MPD may investigate the scene and look at discarded items, talk to witnesses and find out additional information in other ways. When cases are referred to our office, an OAG investigator may also conduct follow-up investigatory steps. Certainly, if we obtain civil enforcement authority, we'll want to work closely with MPD and with DPW to develop investigations and identify appropriate cases for civil enforcement.
Are there any ways this bill could be strengthened or any additional authority that might be helpful for the OAG to have?
At present, I don't think we have any ideas for strengthening the bill. We worked extremely closely with Councilmember Gray's office to identify gaps in the existing statute and propose solutions. We think the bill is a strong one and that it will go a long way towards advancing the district's efforts to crack down on illegal dumping.
Is there anything you'd like to add to the record that we haven't discussed today?
I don't think so. Other than to thank you for holding a hearing on the bill.
Absolutely. I'll turn to my colleague, Councilmember Gray, for questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your support for this bill, and we'll look forward to being able to move forward with it as expeditiously as we possibly can. Is there anything else you want to add, Councilmember Nadeau, with this bill?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I will look forward to us being able to implement this bill and hopefully being able to stop this kind of untoward behavior that is not at all acceptable for people in the District of Columbia. So with that being said, I'm more than happy to support moving forward with the bill, and we'll look forward to making it a major act moving forward. Councilmember Nadeau.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Well, this will conclude today's public hearing. For those who plan on submitting written testimony for the record, please do so by emailing it to judiciary@dccouncil.gov by the close of business on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. The time is 5:23 p.m. and this public hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.